On this video, I would like to do a brief video on Isaiah 53 and why I believe this is fulfilled in Jesus Christ, seen through the revelation of the New Testament. I see both the Hebrew Bible, or the Hebrew Old Testament, and the Greek New Testament as all part of one continuous revelation of God in inspiration. And the Old Testament, many have said, is concealed, Christ concealed, whereas the New Testament is Christ revealed through the lenses of the New Testament going back to the Old Testament. And one of the interesting things, I believe, is that Jesus Christ became the rabbi, the divine rabbi, that I believe opened the understanding of his disciples concerning himself and how he is and was the fulfillment of the Old Testament. The Old Testament being, as the writer of Hebrews says, shadows in chapter 10, 9 and 10, that have their reality fulfilled in Jesus Christ. Isaiah 53 is a very interesting text in this regard. It is part of the servant songs of Isaiah. We have one in 42, one in 49, one in 51, and then one in 52, at the end of 52, verse 13 to 53. Some want to see this as a reference to an ideal Israel suffering in Babylon, and after coming out, the attitude of the nations concerning Israel. The problem, or a righteous remnant suffering in Babylon. The problem with this interpretation, when we look at Isaiah 40 to 55, is found in Isaiah chapter 40, where the Babylonian captivity was where the guilt has been paid off. Where here in Isaiah 53, we have an innocent sufferer. For example, in Isaiah 40, it reads, "Take heart, Jerusalem, and proclaim unto her that the time of her service is accomplished, that her guilt has been paid off, ki nirtzah, that is, her guilt has been paid off, avonah has been paid off, and she has received from the hands of the Lord double for all of her sin. Ki lachacha miyad Adonai kiflayim b'chol chatotecha." So when we look at this text, Isaiah, which is now, we would put Isaiah 40 to 55 as one movement of Isaiah. Some assign this to a second Isaiah. I see it as one Isaiah, going back to John 12 in the New Testament. But the point is, Israel suffers here in Babylon, Isaiah says, for her own sins. Where in Isaiah 53, there's an innocent sufferer that suffers. And it is one who basically was without sin, or without any wrong. So what is interesting, we now have an innocent sufferer, not one who, let's say, paid double for all of her sins, but an innocent sufferer. And so I think that is a key point that draws Christian interpreters to understand that this is a reference to Jesus Christ. And when we look at the New Testament, we see the innocent God-man suffering upon the cross of Calvary for the sins of the world. Another interesting thought is that some want to take the suffering of Isaiah 53 to be in the past tense. All we like sheep have gone astray, and the Lord caused to land upon him the iniquity of us all. Kulanu katson ta'inu. Now it says, Ish ledarko paninu, but Adonai hifgia vo et avon kulanu. That is, he's the innocent sufferer who's bearing the sins of everyone. One of the things that I find here, some say, well, this is in the past, where if Isaiah is writing, Jesus suffered in the future in the New Testament. The response to this, I believe, is what is commonly called a prophetic perfect. That is, it's perfect in tense, but it looks at a futuristic reality. And we have that happening quite a bit in the Hebrew Old Testament. So all we like sheep have gone astray, each to his own way, but the Lord caused to land upon him a hifil, a perfect, the iniquity of all of us. So even Isaiah is including himself in this, because he said, and he was certainly a righteous man, all of us, he is saying, like sheep have gone astray. But the Lord caused to land upon an innocent sufferer the iniquity of all of us. So this to me is an amazing passage that I believe is what I would call a directly Messianic reference, looking at the suffering of Christ for the sins of the world. An innocent sufferer, he who knew no sin, becoming a sin offering for others. And when you read this text, I believe you see Yom Kippur, or the Day of Atonement, because you see him suffering by his sacrifice, followed then by the next representation of the second goat in verse 8. Ki nigzar me'eretz chayim. He was let off, notice, for the transgression of my people, to whom the blow was due. He was cut off from the land of the living. And that Hebrew verb, nigzar, is a passive, nifal, related to the same root in Leviticus 16. The second goat went to a gezerah land, a cut off land. And so just looking in sort of an overview way at this text, we have an innocent sufferer who is suffering for the sins of everyone, including Isaiah, he says, and including all of us. And having suffered like that first goat, he was then let off, meaning he carried the iniquities of everyone into a cut off land. In other words, took them away. And so to me, this is a beautiful text pointing to the crucifixion of Jesus Christ and likening it to Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. And as we look at the New Testament, that's exactly the way it was applied. For example, in Acts chapter 8, we see that application, and in 1 Peter chapter 2. And so to me, this is a very critical text that has its reality fulfilled, I truly believe, in the sacrifice of Jesus Christ as the innocent lamb who bore the penalty of sins for the whole world and was cut off and carried those sins away in the two, can I say, parts of this great, great text. And so again, I'm going to stop here on this particular video, but I wanted to meditate on that. I've done a detailed analysis of the Hebrew text of this whole servant song. And some have said, well, why wasn't the name Mashiach mentioned here, or Messiah? I think the point is he's pointing about the idea, or he's focusing on the idea of a servant. And in Mark, for example, we have the whole concept of a servant that's talked about. And Mark, some feel, being the first gospel. So it's interesting to me as I look at this. My own take on it is that Jesus became the, can I say, the divine rabbi after the resurrection, who took a text like this and many other texts in the Hebrew Bible, which were foreshadowing the reality which Jesus Christ has now fulfilled. And through the pen of divine inspiration, the New Testament writers is teaching us how that what was, we might say, concealed in the Old Testament is now revealed in the New Testament, with Jesus as the teacher that opened that, can I say, that concealment by the beautiful revelation of what he had accomplished on the cross and in his glorious victory over sin and death and in the resurrection. So this is a beautiful text that has, I truly believe, its ultimate and final predictive fulfillment fulfilled in Jesus Christ, the crucified and resurrected Lord.